It's about time for a tutorial, don't you think? Today we're going to go over the Scotch checker stitch, which is a Scotch stitch variation with 3 by 3 little squares, so squares that are 3 stitches by 3 stitches wide, of alternating Scotch stitch and basket weave stitch. So I'm starting out here with the Scotch stitch. So the pattern for a Scotch stitch is over 1, over 2, over 3, over 2, over 1, and so that you make this really nice little square. I am using DMC floss here, and I'm not using a laying tool. I couldn't find one, so I just used my finger and the needle. Don't do that if you're like stitching a fancy project, but since I'm doing just a little stitch demonstration really quick, don't hate me for not being perfect, okay? Like, God. Okay, so once you get your Scotch stitch done, then you alternate the pattern with a basket weave stitch. Now, if you're new to the basket weave stitch, I would honestly recommend trying out the Scotch checker stitch just to give yourself a little bit more practice doing the basket weave in a smaller space like this, because it's like a little teeny tiny square. It's only 9 stitches total. So yeah, do yourself a teeny little basket weave square and then move on, and it's really, really fun. So this isn't actually the way that I stitch the Scotch checker stitch when I'm stitching an entire project, but it is a way for me to show you on this first row like how the pattern needs to go. And if you want to stitch the entire thing vertically or horizontally, you totally can. I love doing this in a way that makes sense as far as like where my needle is traveling to. Like the end of that Scotch stitch matched up perfectly with where my next basket weave stitch needed to go. So if you're going like from the top of your canvas working your way down to the bottom, then a vertical stitch makes sense. But I honestly have found that I like to do all of the Scotch sections first and then come back and do all of the basket weave sections after that. And so I'm going to show you kind of how that pattern goes. So with the Scotch patterns, I will work my way across the canvas, of course, leaving my squares for alternating basket weave and Scotch, but I'm going to work from Florida to Washington and from Washington to Florida in that orientation all the way across my canvas until it's all filled in with just Scotch stitches. And so then I'm left with like a little checkerboard pattern where I have like 3 by 3 holes everywhere, kind of like what you see here. There's a lot of canvas exposed, but I'm being careful to only do the Scotch stitches within the pattern. Now, if you're like compensating or something, it can get a little bit tricky sometimes. So kind of do this within reason and like work a section and then come back and work another section if you need to, etc. It's totally fine. Then I'll do all my basket weave sections at the same time too. And I'll work my basket weave sections from Maine to Arizona down the canvas diagonally. And I fit it between the little rows of Scotch stitch, as you can see here. So just the way that like the stitch flows and how your needle is going, I just follow that throughout the project, and I find that it just is very, very, very mindless when you do it that way. You don't have to stop and think about doing another stitch, you just follow the row. And then here I'm actually coming up the other way so that I don't have to like travel as far, and I'm doing like a left-handed version of the basket weave stitch. So again, check out Abby's tutorial about the left-handed basket weave stitch if you have any questions on that, but I'm just working like bottom up basically through the diagonal. And that's how I like to do the Scotch checker stitch. I think it's really fun, and I feel like it's like super easy to work on, and it's gorgeous when it's all stitched.